The differences between EDA and Kaza, and missed prayers 281, performing A. Prayer at its designated time is called EDA. Performing IT after its designated time is called Kaza. A prayer performed, or to be performed on time, is called VAKTIYYE or SALÂT-I. HAZIRA. A prayer not performed on time is called FAITE. The plural of this is FEVAIT. 282. The making up of the 5 obligatory prayers that were not performed on time is obligatory. The making up of the VITIR prayer, however, is mandatory. As for the Sunnah prayers, if a morning Sunnah prayer is missed along with the obligatory prayer, IT must be made up along with the obligatory prayer from sunrise, the end of the KERAHET time, until the time of ISTIVA. The Sunnah may not be made up before sunrise, the end of the time of dislike, or after the time of ZUHR, according to Imam Muhammad. If this Sunnah is missed on its own, IT is still performed as a MAKKAH from sunrise until the time of ISTIVA. Furthermore, if both Sunnah prayers of the noon prayer are omitted in order to catch up with the obligatory prayer, the first Sunnah prayer is made up after the obligatory prayer, followed by the two-rak'ah Sunnah prayer. This is the ruling. In this way, the Sunnah is not delayed twice within the time frame. However, after the last 2 rak'ats of the Sunnah, an additional 4 rak'ats of the Sunnah may also be made up. Some consider this a better practice to avoid changing the order of the prayer twice. There is a ruling regarding the first 4 Sunnah rak'ats of the Friday prayer, allowing them to be performed either earlier or later. It is not necessary to make up the other omitted Sunnah prayers. However, once IT has been started, the missed Sunnah NAFILE prayer must be made up. Example, if one has begun the last Sunnah prayer of noon but interrupts IT, to avoid missing the funeral prayer, one must make up that Sunnah prayer later. 283. Deliberately postponing a prayer without a valid excuse is a major sin, kebir. This prayer is fulfilled by making up for it later. However, to have the sign committed due to this delay forgiven, one must repent and ask Allah for forgiveness. One must avoid at all costs delaying the prayer under any pretext and leaving it to be made up later. For the sin of this is very great. One must strive to fulfill one's obligations, both toward one's Creator and toward fellow human beings, as soon as possible. The duration of life is fixed and very short. One can never regret enough for the plight of those who depart this world without settling their debts. Warning: many prayers accumulated over 60 or 70 years can be made up on a specific day, on the last Friday of Ramadan, and thus be forgiven, according to the explanations of Hadith scholars and other scholars. The Hadith transmitted on this subject is fabricated, false, and contrary to the consensus of the UMMAH. For such worship cannot replace the obligatory and recommended acts that have been neglected for years. Such a claim is contrary to reason, Sharia, and wisdom, as it would necessitate the abandonment and disregard of obligatory acts. Sign cannot be a reason for ease. This is a fundamental principle in the science of Hadith. Furthermore, those who transmitted this Hadith are not scholars of Hadith. They cannot cite a single source. So what value can this transmission possibly have? The prayer that was missed must be performed by us. We are obliged to perform IT. If we fail to do so, we deserve punishment. However, if a prayer has been missed, Almighty God may forgive it if He wills, and may not forgive it if He wills. He may also grant the performer numerous rewards for any act of worship. No one can interfere with these matters, nor can anyone issue a definitive ruling regarding them. The above claim is a denial of the principle that a prayer which must be made up can be made up with an equivalent act of worship, which is absolutely unacceptable. There are studies on this subject by the late Ali al-Kari and other scholars. Refer to Ali al-Kari's Mazut, Abdurram's Fatwa, and Mu'ajjah al-Hassana. 284. When a person's prayer is missed, the following applies. If that person follows the proper order of prayers, the sequence between this missed prayer and the regular prayers must be observed. If they are not consistent, they may perform the other prayers without first making up this missed prayer. 285 for a person to be considered consistent. At least 6 timely prayers must not have been missed. If 6 obligatory prayers have been missed, they cease to be considered a person who maintains the order. They are no longer required to observe the order either among the missed prayers or between the missed prayers and the obligatory prayers. 286. Regarding missed prayers, both past and present, these fall into 2 categories. When prayers missed in the recent past have reached 6 prayer times, the requirement to observe the proper order is unanimously waived. As for prayers that were missed earlier, old prayers, if they have also reached 6 prayer times, according to the accepted fatwa, the requirement to observe the order is waived. Example: if a person has not prayed for a month and has begun to continuously perform the timely prayers without making up the missed ones, but then misses another timely prayer, they may pray the timely prayer without making up that last prayer. Even if they remember it, such a person cannot be considered to have established the order of prayer until they have completely made up all the missed prayers from the past. This is the correct opinion. 287a. Person who has achieved order. If they fail to perform an obligatory prayer or a prayer considered wajib according to Imam Azam on time without a valid excuse, or due to a condition that does not invalidate prayer, such as menstruation or postpartum bleeding, this prayer must be made up before the next obligatory prayer, for it is essentially a condition to maintain the order both among the missed prayers and between these and the obligatory prayers. However, if the missed prayer was forgotten and recalled later, or if time is short, or if there are so many missed prayers that the order is nitrogen monoxide longer maintained, then the timely prayer is performed. Example: if a person who maintains the proper order of prayers happens to fall asleep and is unable to perform that day's morning prayer, they must make up that morning prayer before the noon prayer of that day. If one prays the noon prayer without making up for it, even though one remembers it, this prayer is invalid according to Imam Muhammad. According to Imam Abu Yusuf, it ceases to be obligatory and becomes a voluntary prayer. According to Imam Azam, however, it is valid temporarily. That is to say, if he were to perform 5 more obligatory prayers without making up that morning prayer, all 6 of those prayers will be valid. However, if one makes up that missed morning prayer before performing those 5 more prayers, the prayers performed in between become invalid and must be performed again. Similarly, if someone has missed the morning prayer but forgets this and proceeds to pray the noon prayer, that noon prayer is valid. Similarly, if a person remembers the missed evening prayer after dawn but finds that the time is only suitable for performing the morning prayer, they perform the morning prayer. The fact that they did not make up the evening prayer earlier, this does not invalidate the validity of the morning prayer. However, if one remembers the missed prayer but extend the timely prayer excessively, thus causing the time frame to become too tight, then the timely prayer is not valid. 288. If there are several missed prayers, qad, and the time allows for only a portion of them to be performed as the obligatory prayer, according to the correct opinion, one must observe the proper order. Similarly, if a person has missed more than 6 obligatory prayers, excluding VITIR, or has missed 6 obligatory prayers, it is valid for them to perform the obligatory prayers of the current time without first making up the missed ones. Because in this situation, it is difficult to maintain the order. Missed prayers, fatler, are considered many when there are 6 or more, excluding the VITIR prayer, and few when there are fewer than 6. According to Imam Shafi, there is no requirement to observe the order between missed prayers and the daily obligatory prayers. It is merely recommended. 289. If a person has missed one of their daily prayers but cannot determine which one, they should perform that daily prayer again. For by doing so, the missed prayer is definitely considered to have been performed. The others become supererogatory prayers. If one has missed a daily prayer on 2, 3, or more days, and cannot determine which specific prayers were missed. The prayers for those days are performed again. 290. When there are many missed prayers, it is not necessary to specify each one when making the intention, for this is difficult. Therefore, it is appropriate to intend as follows: to pray the first or last missed morning or noon prayer. 291. If a person does not know how many missed prayers they have, they should act according to the stronger opinion. They continue to perform the missed prayers until they are certain that no missed prayers remain. 292. If a person doubts whether they have performed the prayer or not, and the time for that prayer has not yet passed, they should perform it again. If they doubt after the time for the prayer has passed, they need not do anything, because the time, which is the reason for the obligatory prayer, has passed. It is a fundamental principle that a Muslim has performed their prayer on time. 293. A person who accepted Islam in a non-Muslim country but was unable to perform their prayers due to ignorance, and who later comes to an Islamic country and learns their religious duties, is not required to make up for those previous prayers. However, a person who is in an Islamic country and converts to Islam, accepts Islam, is not considered excused in this regard. From the date they accept Islam, they are obligated to perform their prayers. Because in an Islamic country, ignorance is not considered an excuse. Everyone may ask those knowledgeable in religious matters to learn their religious duties. 294. If a person is performing a missed prayer and the congregational prayer for that time is about to begin, they must not join the congregation until they have completed their prayer, even if they are not the prayer leader. 295. The missed prayer of the same time may also be performed in congregation according to the proper procedure. Refer to the section on congregation. 296. It is better to perform missed prayers at home, because one must cover up one's sins and not reveal them. Such a revelation is considered disrespectful toward God and may set a bad example for others. 297. If a woman intends to say, "I will pray this many prayers tomorrow or fast for this many days," but then begins her menstrual period on that day, she makes up those prayers or fasts on the days when she is pure. 298. There are no specific times for making up missed prayers. Except for the 3 times when prayer is discouraged, missed prayers can be performed at any desired time. Example: a missed noon prayer can be performed after sunset, just as an evening prayer can be performed before or after noon. 299. Performing missed prayers is better and more important than performing supererogatory prayers. However, regardless of whether the obligatory prayers are muked or not, the sunnah prayers are exempt from this rule. It is not. Better to abandon these sunnah prayers and intend to make up missed prayers in their place. It is more appropriate to intend to perform these sunnah prayers. In fact, this also applies to voluntary prayers about which transmissions exist, such as the morning and tasbih prayers. It is more appropriate to intend these as voluntary prayers as well, for these sunnah prayers complement the obligatory prayers, and it is not possible to perform them in place of those. As for missed prayers, since they have no specific times, they can be performed at any time. However, leaving prayers to be made up later is a sin. To avoid this sign as much as possible, it is not appropriate to sacrifice sunnah prayers. Rather, one who commits such a sign should seek God's forgiveness through extra worship. How can it be appropriate to abandon certain sunnah and voluntary acts that would serve as a means for the Prophet's intercession to manifest? Is it not a double fault to both postpone some timely prayers and separate other timely prayers from the sunnah actions that complete them? Some transmissions contrary to this are invalid. These are contrary to the accepted fatwa, if there are those who claim they cannot find a suitable time to perform both the sunnah prayers and the missed prayers. They are not considered to be making a fair claim. How can people who wasted their most precious time in vain even dare to make such a claim? See also the section on the invalidation of prayer.